Let's take another look at our tamale business, but this time we'll use Excel. So I've got a little preliminary setup done here. In our example that we looked at the previous video, the license fee was $100. Our ingredient cost per tamale were 75 cents. And then we were pricing the tamales at $1.25. And we're going to do a graph of our three functions, the cost, revenue, and profit. So just to start off with, I'll start my table at 0, have a stop value of 100, and 100 steps. And my step size will then be the formula. Oops, formulas always begin with equal. The stop value, subtract the start value, divided by the number of steps. So as we change the start and stop values, the step size will update, our table will update, and our graph will update. Now to set up our table, n is going to be the number of tamales, that'll be our independent variable, and then our cost, revenue, and profit functions will all be functions of the number of tamales. So we're actually going to end up with a graph with 3 lines on it. Now our number of tamales, we're going to start with our start value. So we want that to be equal B7. And then our formula to complete the rest of the table will equal the row above, which in this case is A13 initially, plus our step size. And remember, we need to F for the step size, get those dollar signs in there, so that when we copy this down, we'll keep referencing the cell B10, which is our step size, and then the A13 will update to A14, A15 as we copy down. And so I can click here on my formula, so this will be the second row of my table, not the first row, and then shift click on A113, and then we can fill down, which I'll do with a Control D, and then I can adjust my table if I miscounted, but I started on row 13, so I'm going to end on row 113. That'll give me 100 rows, and my start and stop values control my starting and stopping values in my table. Okay. Now the cost function, I'm going to make this interactive with my values up here. So I'm going to use cell references back to these cells, and whenever I reference back to a parameter, remember I'll need to F4 those parameter references so that they stay fixed. My cost function, my costs involve the license fee, so equals the license fee, and then I will F4 the license fee. And then my other costs were my variable costs, which in this case, plus in there, is my 75 cents, and I'll need to F4 that, multiplied by the number of tamales, which in my case is A13. So I'm not going to F4 the A13 because that is something I want to update as I complete the table. The number of tamales is going to change, but the license fee and the cost per tamale is not going to change. And then I can get my black plus in the corner and double click, and that completes the rest of my table. So my cost for producing 0 tamales is $100. That's my license fee. My cost for producing 100 tamales will be $175. The $100 license fee plus 75 cents per tamale times 100 tamales. Okay. Now the revenue functions, same sort of thing. My revenue is my price per item, price per tamale, and I want to F4 that. And multiply that times the number of tamales that I'm going to sell. Hopefully I sell all the tamales that we make. And then again, get my black plus, double click. There we go. And there's my revenue. And as we looked at earlier, at 100 tamales, we're not going to make a profit. We have expenses of $175, revenue of only $125. We're losing money. We're going to have a negative profit. So let's go ahead and complete our table with our profit equation. And our profit is our revenue, subtract our cost, and we can keep those as relative addresses and copy down. There we go. And as we saw earlier, at 100 tamales, we're losing $50 a month. But we now have a table, so we can look at our values numerically, quantitative approach, and we can scroll through our table and see it for various numbers of tamales, how much money we're losing. And because everything is interactive with our start and stop values, we can change values here. Maybe we want to look at our table from 100 tamales to 200 tamales. And we can see at 200 tamales, we break even. And we can get more or less detailed. We can go from 0 tamales to 10,000 tamales. And at that point, we're making so much money, we need our sales to be a little wider. Let's see, grab that. Let's make that a little wider. Okay, and we can see how much money we're making at 10,000 tamales. So again, the advantage of all these cell references and keeping track of the absolute references versus the relative references with our cells is we can make everything interactive. We don't really need to know what are good values to use when we first set up our table because everything adjusts. And we can grab our data and go to Insert. And let me see. There's my scatter. These are all going to be lines. Grab that, bring it up here. And let's see, I'm going to change the number, my stop value here. I'm going to bring this back to maybe 400. Okay, there we go. So we can see we've got three different equations here for our three different situations. We've got our cost, we've got our revenue, we've got our profit. So how can we tell which one's which? A couple of things. One, it tends to do things in order. So the blue line, series 1, was my first graph, the cost. And how I can tell specifically looking at the graph that that is the cost equation is because I have fixed costs of $100. So at 0 tamales, I have costs, expenses of $100. And then at series 2, the red line, at 0 tamales, I'm making no money. My revenue is also 0. So the red line is going to be revenue because it goes through 0, 0. And then the gray line here is going to be my profit equation because I know at 0 tamales, I'm losing money because of that operating fee. So I'm losing $100 a month if I'm not making any tamales. And then notice also the break-even point is visible in two different places here on the graph. So where the revenue, the red line, crosses the blue line, the two lines intersect at 200 tamales, and that's where my revenue equals my costs. I'm breaking even. My expenses and my income are equal to each other. And that occurs at the same number of tamales as where my profit line is at 0. So when my profit goes from being negative to being positive is also at the 200 tamales. And that's also a break even. Okay, so once we've got the graph up here, we can get a little more detail in it. Let's see, add the chart element, axis titles, horizontal, that's the number of tamales. Axis title, vertical. I've got three different things. These are all dollar amounts, so this is my profit, my revenue, and my cost. They're all being shown on the vertical axis. And I can change my chart title. There we go. And then labeling the Series 1, Series 2, Series 3 is not very helpful. This is one that's always a little bit of trouble to relabel. Seems like there should be an easier way to do this. I'm going to left click here. I'm going to select my data. Let's see, this is my blue line, this is my cost. So Series 1, I'm going to edit and give it the series named cost. Series 2, I'm going to edit. That is my revenue. And then Series 3, we're going to edit that. and that is profit. And okay, there we go. Now we can color coordinate things. The cost equation is in blue. We could go to home and we could fill that cell as being blue to match the blue line. The revenue is a red line, so we could make that cell red. And then the profit looks like it's a gray line, and we can make it gray. So you can add your own design elements here, maybe choose a little better combination of colors. The important thing would be with the charts, they're not useful unless we've got labels that mean something. So explaining what's going on and explaining what each of the different lines are. Oh, one more thing we could do with this. Let's do a quick review here of goal seek. Let's get a little room here. What we were interested in initially was where does our business break even? So goal seek, let's see. We break even when our revenue matches our expenses. Which would be where our profit is 0. We'll just put in a guess here. Let's say 1 tamale. Our cost equation is 100 plus, let's see, that's 75 cents, wasn't it? Times the number of tamales. And then our revenue, $1.25 times the number of tamales. And then our profit is our revenue subtract our costs. I did that backwards. Let's make that revenue subtract costs. And then we can run goal seek and look for where we break even. That in the way, let me get that out of the way. Data, but if analysis, goal seek, we want our profit to be 0 by changing the number of tamales. And we can see we break even. Our revenue equals our costs, 250 and 250. Our profit is 0 when we make 100 tamales.